These are the 8 best whiskeys I've been able to get my hands on in 2022. It's time to see which one's the best. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch, and thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. Man, this is going to be so much fun. So like I said, these are the 8 best whiskeys I've been able to purchase this year in 2022. And because I'm, still new to this and just going out and getting my hands on whatever I can get my hands on, I thought we would take the 8 best whiskeys I've got, which are sort of more limited, I don't have everything, but put them to the test against each other and do a couple of rounds of blind matchups to really figure out which one I consider the best, and also just gives me a really good excuse to drink some of the best whiskey I've had ever and the best whiskey of 2022. So let's just do a quick rundown here of what's on the table now. So first we've got Bardstown Discovery Series number 8, which might be my front runner, to be honest with you. I think that it might be the best whiskey I own. It's so good. Then we've got the Rocket Top Rye Batch 2 from Redwood Empire. That's a more recent pickup, but it's kind of been blowing me away, and I'm interested to see how it fares, especially because it's the only rye in the mix here. Then we've got 2 Larceny Barrel Proof products. We've got the B522 and the C922. Something about Larceny Barrel Proof just really hits my palate, and these are more available overall, sort of more available allocated bottles each year, so glad to have my hands on both of these. Then we've got the BRT02. So I did consider including the BRT01, but to be honest with you, I just really loved the BRT02 and thought that was a step above it, so included that here. And I think this is another potential favorite here. Really fantastic whiskey. Then we've got the Barrel Vantage, bringing a little bit of that oak finish and toasted oak to the party. We've got Elijah Craig Barrel Proof B522, which is the only Elijah Craig I was able to pick up this year, but man, it is really, really good. A very good batch. And then last but not least, we've got the Knob Creek 18 year, which is the most expensive bottle I own and really, really has a great amount of oak and probably will stand out a lot in this series. So the way this blind matchup system is going to work is that we've got 8 whiskeys here, so we're going to split them into 2 groups of 4. Those separate blind matchups, 2 winners are going to come from both of those groups, and then the 4 winners will be combined together and all put head to head in a final blind matchup to see which comes out as the best whiskey of 2022. Without further ado, let's get into the first blind matchup of 4 of these whiskeys. All right, everybody, these are our first 4 whiskeys for our first blind matchup. I put all 8 into a random number generator and let that just determine what the 2 matchups would be. So this is our first blind matchup. We've got the Discovery Series 8, Rocket Top Rye, BRT02, and this is the C922 Larceny Barrel Proof. All right, we've got our blind set up now. We've taken the bottles off the table. I have no idea what order these are in. Let's just dive in on the nose. So we'll go from your left to right, and we'll start here with Glass A. On the nose. Nice mix of like a butterscotch and darker notes like a cocoa or maybe a little bit of barrel presence. But that butterscotch and cocoa is sort of the core here. Maybe a little bit of vanilla. A little bit of cherry too. But I really like that cocoa note that's coming through on that. Very nice. All right, Glass A starting strong. Let's go to Glass B. On the nose. Ooh, a little bit sweeter. A little bit more fruit coming through. There's a brown sugar element to it as well. Apple. If I had to pick a fruit, it's kind of that apple presence to it. Some brown sugar, caramel, vanilla. Maybe a little bit of cherry. So that lightened up a little bit and maybe got a little bit more fruit burst coming through on Glass B compared to Glass A. Let's move on to Glass C. So Glass C on the nose. Oh, okay. Now compared to Glass A and then B. Glass C is by far the sweetest. It's got this honey, cotton candy, sugar cane kind of sweetness going on. So a little bit of herbalness, maybe like a tea quality to it. But that burst of sugar cane, candy kind of sweetness, cotton candy really stands out. And we've gone from, pretty sweet to good fruit sweetness to Glass C, like almost an overload of sweetness. Really, really sweet. Let's go to Glass D now. Check that out on the nose here. Oh, okay, so now we're going darker. There's a lot more of a caramel, vanilla base to it. A little bit spicy, a little bit more in your face. But the vanilla is nice. Some barrel presence. But yeah, we sort of went from somewhat sweet, fruit sweet, super sweet to back to dark with Glass D here. So a nice progression. All of them are different but inviting in their own way. I wouldn't say any of those noses is bad at all. In fact, all of them are drawing me in for a sip. So let's just start that process now and go into Glass A on the palate. Cheers, everybody. Yeah, that nice butterscotch and cocoa really comes through on the palate. There's some of that barrel presence. It really kind of mellows out into this vanilla and maybe even a little darker caramel and barrel char presence to it. A lot of that transferred over from the nose to the palate. Really enjoying it. I think it's got a good spice to it as well. There's a presence of that in the mid palate, but overall it kind of is a rolling out experience and pretty warm and well-rounded. So a very nice start to this blind matchup, and that really kind of transferred well from the nose to the palate there for Glass A. All right, let's move on to Glass B on the palate here. Cheers, everybody. Wow. That is really good. That's got like brown sugar and maple syrup, kind of like a pancake maple syrup experience in the middle there. There's an apple fruit burst along the way and some spice. It's got some heft. And then really some good vanilla lingering on the palate. That one really is kind of complex, and that brown sugar is really shining through for me. I mean, whew. Those are two really, really good whiskeys to start out. Glass B coming off of Glass A, I mean, that's really shining too. So gonna be hard to pick those two out. I mean, again, these are all great whiskeys, and I enjoy sipping on all of them. So it's gonna be hard to pick some favorites here. But gotta keep moving on, so let's go to Glass C now. Glass C on the palate here. Wow, yeah. That is like a lollipop candy sweetness. Smarties, cotton candy, kind of got that vibe. It is balanced out with deeper notes of like spice and herbal quality to it, some honey. But that is by far the sweetest experience. More earthy too. It's just, it goes in a different direction. Glass C really stands out. I'm enjoying it a lot. I do think that sweetness is potentially a little bit overwhelming, but I mean, it just kind of bursts all over the palate with this candy, sugar cane kind of sweetness, which really stands out from the other two. All right, last but not least, let's move on to Glass D here on the palate. Wow. Ooh, wow. Glass D. Glass D is so good. Glass D has a lot of those pancake, brown sugar, maple syrup notes that I was getting on Glass B, I think it was. But that apple, it's almost like a dark cherry and apple fruit burst as well. Maybe a little bit less spicy and pungent than Glass B, maybe a little bit more of a well-rounded sipper. we might have saved the best for last there with Glass D there. Glass D and Glass B are kind of standing out in my mind right now as similar, but both presenting really good flavors. Actually, let me just revisit these two together just real quick. Yeah, that's good brown sugar, maple, very sugary. And then compared to that, Glass B here has a little bit more of a nut and cinnamon with some vanilla, but still that brown sugar pancake kind of base. This might be more like French toast with its spiciness and cinnamon. And this is more of like an apple pancake. Glass D is a little bit more of an apple pancake. Wow, what a great lineup. None of these is a bad whiskey at all. In fact, they're all great whiskeys, so it's going to be hard to pick favorites, but I am going to go from D to A now and then do some A/B testing to figure out my favorites. I'll fast forward through all of that for you guys so that you can just, cut to the chase and figure out what comes out on top for me. All right, everybody. I think I've got my full ranking here of these 4 whiskeys. Again, they're all great, but there are 2 that are going to advance because I think they're a step above. So let's reveal the final rankings here. So in 4th place for me, I've got Glass C. For me, Glass C is extremely sweet. It's got that great cotton candy, sugarcane sweetness, but it's a little bit tamer of a sip, and that sweetness can become a little bit overwhelming on the palate, and that's what I found throughout this experience. So let's see what Glass C was. In 4th place is, all right, that's the Rocket Top Rye. So again, not a loser today. For a 5-year-old rye whiskey, Redwood Empire, I mean, they're doing such great things. This is different than anything I've ever tasted, and it's really, really cool. It's really cool, that sweetness that comes through with some herbal quality to it. But in this lineup, it was a little bit of a half step below some of these other ones. All right, in 3rd place here we have Glass A, which I love. I love that butterscotch. I love that cocoa. Lots of great notes on here. Was a little bit bitter on the back end, which played a role in it being 3rd place here, and just didn't quite have the complexity and almost the punch of the other 2 that were a half step above it, but still a really phenomenal whiskey. Let's see what it was. Wow, okay. It's the BRT02. I thought this was going to be sort of a top 2 or 3 whiskeys here, a favorite in this series, but for some reason, just in this lineup, it's fell a half step below these other 2 that are standing out above it, and I still love the flavors here, but maybe a little bit of that bitterness gave it a little bit of a knock and just didn't quite have the staying power and punch as these other 2. Speaking of the other 2, let's get into the final 2 whiskeys. Now, both of these will be moving on to the final matchup, but still let's figure out which one was on top here. And for me, the clear winner today was Glass D. I mean, just a phenomenal whiskey, brown sugar, apple, dark cherry, so many good fruits, but then that like pancake, apple, brown sugar note really shines through. Glass B though, I mean, gave it a good run for its money. It's got that deeper, darker French toast with some cinnamon and peanut. So let's figure out what we're looking at here. So Glass B was, all right, that's the Larceny C922. All right. And that means Glass D was the Discovery Series number 8. Okay, so that makes sense. I did, have Discovery Series number 8 probably as my front runner here. It's like pancakes and syrup and brown sugar and apple. But man, this French toast nature of the Larceny C922 with some cinnamon and nut there, I mean, it was a pretty close second here. So interested to see how these 2 will do going forward in our next matchup of 4 whiskeys. I am sad to see the Rocket Top and the BRT02 knocked out of the matchup, especially this BRT02, but again, they're not losers. They're both really phenomenal whiskeys, and if you have the opportunity to pick either up, I give them a huge recommend, of course. All right, everybody, that's the first round of this series of trying to find the best whiskey of 2022 for me. really just had a lot of fun tasting all these different great whiskeys, and can't wait for the next matchup. Can't wait for the final round. Until I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.